Marvel Rivals Season 3.5 is here. With the addition of the newest hero Blade, new team-ups, and changes to strategists, Season 3.5 is definitely, well, a special one. And today we got a tier list video talking about all the best and some of the worst characters in Marvel Rivals Season 3.5 to play currently. And if you're wondering why am I listening to this random duck on the internet, well, I do coaching and analyst work for Marvel Rivals, and I used to do it back in Overwatch 1. So if you're looking for some coaching, make sure to send me a message at my email, duckfilmstv@gmail.com. As well, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. But anyways, let's dive into the tier list. Now, kicking things off, we have none other than Doctor Strange, and he has definitely seen some improvement thanks to the recent buffs in both Season 3 and Season 3.5. With hit scan heroes like Hela and Phoenix being such prevalent picks, being super picked, I mean, it's a little bit harder to play double shield, and you have characters just kind of bypassing his shield in general, so it doesn't make him amazing or a super standout as well. I can't necessarily put Strange in S tier. I think in certain team compositions, he definitely suits the S tier role. I think Magneto is still a must-pick hero over Doctor Strange. I think Emma Frost still a must-pick hero over Doctor Strange as well. There's just a ton of heroes that outclass and outperform Strange. But don't get me wrong, Strange is still a good tank. Now, the removal of his fall-off back in Season 3 for his E ability was a huge quality of life buff, and he brings tools to the table that no other Vanguard does, especially in double shield tank compositions, and because his Portal is a game-winning, tool, playmaker, whatever you want to call it. And again, the recent changes in Season 3.5 increases ammo capacity of his primary attack from 8 to 10, meaning he has more kill pressure, more kill potential, and they reduced the Cloak of Levitation cooldown from 15 to 12 seconds. 3-second cooldown doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a relatively good change. Now, with all of that being said, I don't think I can put him in the S tier. I think putting him in A tier suits him perfectly fine. Now, when I do my tier list, left to right on the tier list means nothing to me. I just put him in the tier list. So he's A tier for now. Now moving on to my next Vanguarded list, we have Hulk. And make sure not to skip through the video because I'm going to explain my picks for each category. Some people like to skip the video. Hey, if you do, you do, but you won't understand my points. But anyways, Hulk, he's a very situational hero. And when you're playing comp, or you're playing high elo play, or you're playing tournaments, you really have to ban specifically for Hulk to get a ton of value. Now, the Namor team-up is still a very decent and strong team-up, especially with the changes made to Namor in Season 3. Namor is definitely more of a threat than he was previously. Hulk as a standalone tank is okay. He's not awful, but he's not amazing either. He lands comfortably in the B tier. Some tweaks are definitely needed to make him more competitive in the current meta, but in certain matchups and situations, he can get immense value. I'm not saying the character is terrible. I've seen great Hulk players in high elo still being played without a Namor, but again, having the Namor is just way more beneficial with playing the Hulk. Having Hulk standalone sometimes can be not the best option when you have characters like Emma, Thing, Doctor Strange, Groot, all in the current meta, Magneto as well. Hulk is one of those characters that just doesn't fit too well. Now, again, you have to ban for Hulk to play him extremely well. If you ban for him, the character can be high A tier, S tier, but for the most part, in general play, he sits in the middle at B tier. Again, if you have the right bans, he can look like an A tier character, he can look like an S tier character, don't get me wrong. But for this sake, I think I'm putting him B for a general statement. So B is kind of where I'm sitting with them. Now moving on, we come to the master of magnetism himself, Magneto. Now Magneto is still the king of tanks. Magneto has been dominant for multiple seasons, and that hasn't changed. He does take some skill to master. Even an average player can get solid value from him, but not a ton. His synergy with Emma is unmatched, and he's a top pick or ban in nearly every competitive match. There's no debate, S tier without question. Unless he gets major nerfs, he'll likely stay there. In Season 3.5, he saw a little bit of a change, which they reduced the Metal Bulwark and Iron Bulwark shield value from 300 to 250. Now, that 50 shield value change isn't anything really. Maybe you burn the bubble a little bit faster, but that's really about it. The character still does an insane amount of damage. No changes were made. The meta still suits him, and I don't think this character is really going to go anywhere. So with that being said, he has to still be S tier. If I can find him on my list, there he is, S tier as always. Now moving down the list, we come to Thor. Even with the recent changes that allows his Awakening rune to be cancelled back in Season 3, Thor is still underwhelming. He did receive some changes in Season 3.5, where he gained 1 fixed Thor Force upon exiting the Awakened rune awakened state, and the Lightning Realm new effect, enemies leaving its boundary are grounded for 2 seconds, restricting aerial abilities. Now this character is still terrible. There's a billion counters in the game that absolutely shred Thor. I've yet to see a very good Thor player. Now you could sit here and debate, oh, Thor has super high win rate, he has super this and that. Literally like 2 people play Thor. No one plays Thor. The character's terrible. There's way better picks. If there's Emma thing in the game, Hawkeye, Punisher, Bucky, Namor, the list goes on and on. All these are counters. The character is just terrible. If you're playing Thor, please stop. The character's bad. We want the devs to rework the character. He needs changes. He is not a Vanguard. He is not a tank. This is a glorified duelist that does some damage. I'd rather have a Spider-Man right-clicking only than having a Thor on my team. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. So for that sake, Thor has to be D tier. You can hate me all you want, but that's what it is. Now moving on to Groot. Groot's got some nice changes. First, they increased his Vine Strike range from 20 meters to 22, and they increased the Floral Colossus effect radius from 20 meters to 24. That's his giant wall, so you can be a little bit further to get value from that wall or place it. This is all nice changes. He also got an insane team up with Mantis and Loki that makes him an even better pick now. He's essentially like a 4th strategist on your team, if you want to put it like that. I think the character is very good right now, and I think the meta kind of allows for him to really shine. Just because of that team up, he gains his ult extremely fast, and because that ultimate is such a team fight defining measure, I think the character is in an even better spot. I think previously I had him A tier. Now I would kind of move him A+, S- tier, sort of in that realm when he has the team up. If he doesn't have the team up, then he's a little bit lower on my list, just a flat A. But with the team up, he looks S+, S, A+, wherever you want to categorize that. Without the team up, he still sits base A, I would say. But with team up, he sits S. So I'll just put him A for right now, thinking that Mantis is banned. It's A tier. Mantis is saved, then S probably. That's kind of my opinion and decision on that. Now, when it comes to Peni Parker, Peni is what I like to call a specific scenario hero. On certain maps, like Convoy or Convergent maps, such as Midtown, she can work well, especially in triple tank comps when you're playing GOATs. However, most players don't know how to get value from her consistently. She's not a generalist and shouldn't be picked in most standard comps. If I weren't accounting for those specific scenarios, she'd probably fall in C or D tier. So situational is probably where I would like the character to fall. Again, certain maps the character shines. On pretty much every single other map, the character doesn't shine. I know that she has one of the higher win rates, but you have to also account that she has a lower pick rate as well to kind of, even it out, I would say. There are very good Peni players out there, but in general, the character just sucks. You have characters like Punisher, you have Hela, you have Phoenix, you have everything in the world that just shuts down this character. I think, again, the character can get value in certain situations, but in a general setting, I don't think she's a good pick. I think she's on the realm of Thor. Maybe she's a little bit better than Thor, but I don't think she's that good. So I'm putting her C tier, but for the most part, she would be situational, but definitely C. Now, Captain America. I think Captain America is a fantastic Vanguard, a fantastic tank. He is a stall tank with some backline annoyance potential. But here's where things get interesting. If Emma, Wolverine, Punisher, Namor, Thing, these characters that shut him down are in the game, it's going to be very hard to get value as Captain America. You also have to keep in mind, we're seeing teams in Season 3.5 playing triple strategists more and more. And when you have that triple strategist team composition, Captain America is going to get less value. Now, I'm not saying the character can't get any value into triple strategist. I'm saying that it's going to be less and less value. That being said, I think if the bands are right, he definitely looks like an A character. I think if the stars align, then the character looks fantastic. If, you're running that triple strategist and you can't get any value, you have to swap. The character is all about just being annoying, being a harassing character. And when you have triple strategists, if you only annoy one strategist, the one other healer heals the other strategist, and the third strategist heals the rest of the team. So his impact isn't immense, but it is there. I think the Psylocke Captain America dive is still alive, or the Captain America dive with any other dive duelist is still alive as well, if the bans are right. But I think if the bans are wrong, the character sits B tier. I think he can be played if you need that little help, if you need that other strategist ultimate essentially. If you need some backline pressure, then you can pick up a cap. But I think for the most part, putting him in B tier is going to be the best option. Now, moving on to Venom. Venom didn't receive any changes in Season 3.5. And I do think he is a solid character. Again, you have to have the right bans. I'm going to keep emphasizing that. Because if you have characters like Emma or The Thing, Punisher, Wolverine, flying characters without bans on those threats, Venom can't do a whole lot. He's definitely not unplayable with those characters in the game. He can be played, but you just have to be way more strategic about how you dive in, how you use your cooldowns, things like that. Now, I think if the bans are right, the character looks insane. I think he looks like an A tier character. We've seen a ton of pro play. We've seen a ton in high elo play. But again, you have to look out for characters like Emma, Thing, Wolverine, all of these characters. You can't ban all of them, so it's going to be a lot harder to play. Now, I think previously I put him C tier, but I think if the bans are right, he looks like an A, S tier character. That could be said for a lot of the characters in the game if the bans are right. But for the most part, I think putting him in B tier is perfectly fine with, no bans in play. I think with bans, he looks a S, if that makes sense. So I think putting him B for now is perfectly fine. Now, moving on to The Thing, we see that The Thing, besides getting the Thong skin back in Season 3, he also received that he can jump up and knock people down. He didn't receive any changes in Season 3.5, which is perfectly fine. So the character is still in a pretty good spot. He's another one of those characters that you have to pick and you have to save and ban the right characters to have the best matchup possible for this character, because he does soak up a ton of damage. I think the character is still very strong. I think the character with the Human Torch, the team up, is also still very viable, still very strong as well. I think because we're seeing Groot going to be played a lot more now, Thing might be a little bit harder to play, so I don't think he's S tier anymore. He might get knocked down to A tier because Groot counters Thing relatively well if you know what you're doing. You can wall off, the Thing. You can wall his ultimate. There's a lot of variations you can do to shut Thing down as Groot. I think the character no longer S, but I do believe he's A tier now, which is fine in my opinion. I love this character. He's so fun to play, but I think putting him A tier is fine. No longer S tier, but that's what it is. Power rankings, all of this shifts, so it's all good. So A tier is perfectly fine. Moving on to Emma Frost. Why is this character still in the game? Look, she didn't receive any changes in Season 3.5. She received a little changes in Season 3. The character is still the best Vanguard in the entire game. Don't know why they really haven't touched this character too much. Maybe because she sells the most skins, or people play her so much because for specific reasons. But she's dominant in Season 2 when she got released, Season 2.5, Season 3, and Season 3.5. I think you're still going to be getting her, picked up, getting played. Her synergy with Magneto is unmatched, making her one of the most valuable tanks in the entire game. And even now, you see in pro play that she's either getting picked or, saved or banned constantly. It's either that or Magneto getting picked and banned as well. Now, this duo definitely defines team comps right now. S tier without hesitation. But I think with the addition of Groot, you could definitely play more Emma Groot, and I think that's a lot more interesting to watch. I always like Groot gameplay, but I think because of just how strong the character is, straight up, she has to be S tier. There's no hesitation. Now moving on to our duelist section. First of all, if you made it this far into this video without skipping ahead, you're a legend and you're amazing. But starting off with Black Panther. Now, Black Panther is a highly niche hero. He suits a very specific playstyle and player. A skilled Panther can be extremely oppressive and dish out a ton of damage. But the game has many counters that hold him back. In general, just very rare occurrences or where I'll place them relatively low. You're seeing him get picked a ton. You're seeing players trying to learn this hero. And you saw a recent change in Season 3.5 that increased the Spirit 1 cooldown from 8 seconds to 10 seconds, the dash. Now, before you say anything or type anything in the comments, just listen. This is not a big change. 8 to 10 seconds. Stop crying. Stop crying. You're a grown adult crying about a hero change. This 8 to 10 seconds doesn't really do anything. Yes, if you miss a dash, your downtime is going to be longer, yes, but that's the whole point of a dive hero. You have downtime. When you don't have cooldowns, there's downtime because of that. All it does is add 2 seconds to your downtime. It doesn't change that you one-shot people. It doesn't change that you can do immense damage. You just have to be smarter, more strategic of where you place your dashes. I'm sick and tired of people crying about the dash changes. That's the whole point of a dive character. You dash in, you get out, you wait for the cooldowns, then you go back in. Just because, your little ADHD brain can't contain, that 2 seconds, maybe Black Panther isn't the character for you. 8 to 10 seconds doesn't do anything. The character is still very good if played right. But if played wrong, the character is going to be terrible. Yes, that's straight up. I think the character sits like CB tier. Realistically, there's a billion counters to this character. You have Namor Hulk, you have Thing, you have Emma. You could literally throw Groot in there. You could play goats, you can play triple strategists. There are a ton of options that are in the game that you can play. Yet nobody picks it when they're placing a Black Panther because no one wants to swap. In high elo and pro play, if they're dealing with a Black Panther, you just play triple strategists, or you just peel more, or you focus them down more. That's the whole idea. In normal ranked play, he gets immense value because nobody knows how to have coordination. That's why the character is so good. But in more scrim-oriented, playstyles, gameplay, whatever, the character is terrible. So for that sake, he looks CB tier. Even CD tier. You just have to get past the rest of it. Sorry, that was my little Black Panther. Now moving on to Black Widow, and she's kind of in a similar boat to a lot of these other duelists that have a very niche player base or playstyle, very situational, very player dependent. A cracked Widow Mantis combo can absolutely carry a game, don't get me wrong. It's all dependent on the Widowmaker skill, or sorry, Black Widow. But she demands heavy resources, investment, peel, healing, timing, and ideally no shield tanks on the enemy team. The character, again, can be good in the right hands. But in the wrong hands, the character does nothing. Nothing at all. For that instance, we're putting her D tier. Look, you can type in the comments, oh, I ran into this Black Widow, they were amazing. I ran into this, that's amazing. What about these top Widow players in top 500? Yeah, that's all certainly true, but you have to remember there's only a very few of them that are absolutely insane. For the most part, there's just too many variables that you have to account for, so the character isn't super strong in comparison to, most of the other duelists in the entire game. Why pick Black Widow if I have an insane Hela player? Why play Black Widow if I have a Phoenix, if I have a Hawkeye? Those characters don't demand as many resources as Black Widow does. That's why for this sake, we're putting her D tier. But if she has all of the variables right for her, all the bands are perfect for her, then certainly the character can look S tier, but for the sake of this, she looks D tier for the majority of players. Now moving on to our next duelist, we come to Hawkeye. Hawkeye is in a peculiar spot because when we look at the overall meta, we see a lot of Groot, we see a lot of Doctor Strange, we see a lot of Magneto, we see Emma, so we see all shield characters. Hawkeye thrives when there's really not too many shield characters to deal with. I think certain scenarios allow for Hawkeye to truly shine and really show how much impact the character can have. I don't think he's S tier like he was back in season 2, 2.5 when, or beginning of season 3 maybe, when he had to team up with Luna and was very strong. That made him S tier. I think right now, even with the team up, he still sits on a weaker side out of the hit scan duelist, or in quotations hit scan duelist, because he is projectile. I think he sits A tier. I think he sits on the lower end of A tier, like A minus, B plus type of scenario or type of area. So I think putting him like A tier is fine for me. I could see debates and arguments for putting him lower. I definitely see that, but I think let's put him A tier for right now. Now, Hela, in my opinion, is actually in a very interesting spot. Because she is so dominant in the S tier category, because she has immense damage. She's been S tier since the game getting released. But season 3.5 is a little bit interesting in my opinion, because we have Phoenix. Now, the character, don't get me wrong, Hela does do immense damage. She is a very good pick most of the time. But she demands a lot of resources if you think about it. She needs Luna Flake, the Luna Snowflake. If you have Invisible Woman, she needs the Invisible Shield. She demands a lot of resources. If she's getting dived, you have to peel for her a ton. You just have to, put so many resources into a Hela for the Hela to truly succeed. But with those resources, she can absolutely take over a game. If she doesn't have those resources, it's going to be rather hard for her to really do anything. On the other hand, you have Phoenix. Phoenix doesn't necessarily demand those same things. She has her own self-healing. She has a stun. She has essentially 2 get out of jail free cards with both her shift, which is the TP, and the flying ability. Again, you don't need the Luna Fake because she has her own healing. You don't need Invisible Woman's shield. Yes, I did voice crack. She just doesn't demand too much, and I think she does immense damage in comparison to Hela. If we look at the meta, I think Hela does not fit into this meta really well. I think characters like Psylocke, I think characters, like Phoenix are going to be picked over her because of what the Hela demands. And I would be tempted to move Hela actually down to A tier instead. It sounds crazy, people are going to hate me for this, and I don't really care, but I think the character is just in a very hard spot right now in the Season 3.5 meta. From what I've been seeing, what I've practiced, what I used in MRC this last weekend, I think the character is A tier. I think you just play Phoenix instead. I think the character is still S tier in my heart, but in terms of the current meta, I think she sits A. If Phoenix is banned, maybe you play Hela, but she's between the two. Now moving on to cheaper Town Hall, aka Iron Fist. Now, Iron Fist got nerfed back in Season 3, Season 2.5, and Season 3.5, he also received a little bit of a nerf because he got the removal of an anchor, but to compensate that, they increase his 5th strike damage, they increase his percent damage, they adjust his harmony recovery bonus health, and they increased his kick first strike damage. They also gave him a team up to where he can heal allies within a certain radius. All pretty cool changes, a pretty cool team up in my opinion. For the most part, I don't think the meta compositions in Season 3.5 really fit Iron Fist right now, because we're looking more at triple strategist lineups, and where Iron Fist really shined was getting those isolated fights, diving the healers, or diving the strategists, whatever you want to call them, and really, or running down the Vanguards. Because we're running more triple strategists, and we're running more tankier Vanguards, yes, he does excel because he does the percentage damage, but I think having the triple strategist, this makes Iron Fist's life a whole lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder for him to, get eliminations, have a ton of impact, and there's a lot of shutdowns. Look, some players might be getting impact from this character. That is certainly true. There are people that play this character religiously that find value, or find face value, whatever you want to describe it as. For the most part, in the general, stances, when you come to high elo play, when you come to pro play, you don't see this character picked. Even in mid-level play, you don't really see it picked either because you're seeing more people pick triple strategists, at least from me playing ranked the past few days. I think he is in one of those scenarios where he's kind of sitting with Black Panther or Black Widow. The character can be good in the right hands. Everything is situational. I just don't think he's a good pick. I think he sits on par. I think he's a good character, but it's like, the character is so cool. The character is so cool. Very unique character design, but very cool skin designs as well. Not gonna lie, but I think we have to put him on the lower end. I think we put him C tier. I don't think he's as bad as Thor in Black. I think that's fine in my eyes. Now, Iron Man was a powerhouse before losing Gamma. That change, combined with the rise of other strong duelists, pushed him out of the S tier category. Back when he had Gamma. When he had Gamma, he was literally like the best character in the entire game. Now, the Ultron team up theoretically offsets some of the loss, but against teams that know how to focus fires, it's not enough. Now, he did receive some nerfs in Season 3, or was it 2.5? Can't really remember. You know, it's not the biggest changes in the world. He still can be a super solid character, but there is the rise of, or the addition of Phoenix, another hit scan character, has definitely made Iron Man being played a lot harder. You also have a ton of other counters in the game, and if you were going to be playing a flyer, you would be better off just picking up the Human Torch or Johnny, because the character's so amazingly strong. For the most part, Iron Man, he sits BC on realistically. Like, this is me being nice. Like, when I make tier lists, I try to be a little bit more lenient and a little bit more nice. If I was super brutally honest, I'd put a majority of these characters in the F tier based on the meta. But I think I'll sit on BD, but you really need the bands like perfect for this character to be able to be played optimally. So I think putting him like in the middle is fine. I think he can be played with the right bands. If like some hit scan characters made it through the ban system, like if Phoenix was banned and Hela was open, you're still not going to pick Iron Man. Vice versa, Hela banned, Phoenix is open, you would still not pick Iron Man. If you have other hit scan, if you have Punisher, you wouldn't pick Iron Man. If you have characters, you could even say Hawkeye, Starlord, Black Widow, like all these characters, Namor, all counter him. So it's going to be very hard for him to get immense value. So I think putting him in the middle is like fine. So B tier it is. Now, moving on to Magik. In my opinion, Magik is a little bit of a slept on character. I think the character is decent. She's not as good as she once was. She thrives in dive or brawl comps, but again, we're playing triple strategist. It might be harder to get more value. Yes, she can one-shot people. Don't get me wrong. A good Magik can work around the triple strategist. It's just a lot harder with all the characters in the game. She can be good. Again, it's just when it comes to these diving brawl characters in the current meta in season 3.5, this is not a overall tier list. This is a season 3.5 more specifically. It seems like the diving brawl characters are really low in the ground. I think the character sits at C. I have to. Like, I hate doing this, but it just doesn't feel good. I think the character sits C. Now moving on to Moon Knight. Moon Knight's D. Look, the character is not good. Yeah, you can pick him sometimes for the most part, but it's very situational. If the enemy team is playing goats on convoy, you would pick that character to just do a ton of AoE damage, get your ult out as fast as possible to really split up the enemy team. The character isn't good for the most part. You get little to no value in most of the time. When you're playing against a Phoenix, how are you gonna beat? If the Moon Knight is beating Phoenix in a 1v1, the Phoenix player should really reconsider what character they're playing. That also goes for like any other, ranged duelist. The character just isn't good. Again, very situational character for very specific circumstances. You could put it in the situational tier, but that's kind of where I stand on Moon Knight. Now, Namor did receive some love at the beginning of season 3. He got some nice improvements, some nice buffs that definitely make the character a lot stronger. And if you have the right bands for Hulk, you can certainly play Namor Hulk I think the team up is still very good, still very strong. I think with the addition of the Mantis team up with Loki and Luna, if you have the Luna damage boosting and the Loki rune at the same time, you essentially have the old whale combo with Luna. It will one-shot literally anybody in the entire game for the most part, except for Vanguards, of course. I think Namor is a kind of slept-on hero for the most part in terms of high elo and pro play, but you see him played a lot more in pro play because of the changes, and I think the character is still very good. So I think with the team up, he sits A tier. Without the team up, without Hulk, Namor doesn't really get played outside of that. You have to have the team up to really get value out of the character. You can get some value, but you're going to struggle a little bit more in comparison to other duelists, you know, in the category or on the field, whatever you want to call it. I think the character sits A with team up. Without team up, he gets knocked down to B. That's kind of where I stand. So moving on to Psylocke. Now, Psylocke didn't receive any changes, which is a little interesting. I mean, she is very strong in my opinion. At high elo, pro play, even in the middle ranks, the character is probably insane still, especially with that team up. Like, the team up is still very good. I think all you have to do is like one ban and the character is like still S tier. If you're running triple strategist, it's a little bit of a different story because it's going to be a little bit harder for you to get value on the strategist as you are, you know, diving, being in the backline, being a nuisance. But I think you being in the backline is very good still. I think we go S based on pro play, high elo play, middle ranks. The character is still very strong, can carry a game. But once the triple strategist rolls out on the enemy team, the story might be a little bit different. But you can still get some decent value. The biggest thing you have to worry about is the Loki. You do a dive in, get the lamps out, you instantly dive out. Once you get the lamps out, then you should be able to go back after a reset. So I think the character is still in a pretty good spot. I think S tier is perfectly fine. People can debate me all they want, but I think the character still outshines most of the other duelists in the entire game. So I think it's just better. I think S sits perfectly fine for her. Now moving on to Punisher. Now there was no debate in season 2.5, the beginning of season 3, where Punisher was high, like S tier, high A tier. He was arguably probably like one of the strongest duelists in the entire game. If he was pocketed, speed boost, he literally just ran everybody over. But I think with the addition of Phoenix and other heroes and the changes made to him, I think he moves down a tier. He gets dethroned from the S tier. He's a little bit more interesting when it comes to like an A tier. I think if the bans are, again, like I've been saying, if the bans are right, yes, I repeat that phrase, but that's just how it is. Most of the time when you're looking at tier lists, you're using it to gauge what you're going to be playing in ranked. So there are bans in ranked, I believe, at gold and up. So that's what we're going with. If the bans are right for Punisher, he definitely shines a lot. He's also a great counter to Groot, what I feel like Groot is really strong right now, especially in the meta, especially with the new team up with Mantis and Loki, like I've been saying. So Punisher is going to be picked more. But if you're wanting to play Groot, well, you would usually just ban Punisher. I think he sits A tier. But if a Groot is in the game and Punisher is open, definitely pick it all day. I think the character is still very good. That's kind of my idea with it. Now, when it comes to Scarlet Witch, yes, this character can be decent at taking out some characters in the game. Whether it's like a Black Panther or other flying duelists, yes, Scarlet Witch does essentially counter them because of the auto tracking and stuns and things like that. But realistically speaking, this character gets little to zero value most of the time. The character just needs a rework, realistically. There's so many flaws with the character. Like, she ults and literally anything can stop her. You just walk away. You shield, you do whatever. The character's D. I mean, you can pump all of your resources into this character and the character still wouldn't get, insane value like other duelists in the game. I think there are the rare occasions of certain specific team compositions, like a Mantis. It's like Mantis, Loki, Luna, Storm, all damage boosting a Scarlet with the team up of Doctor Strange, then yeah, the Scarlet's going to get value. But the fact that you need to pump all of those resources into this character to get like a ton of value is kind of criminal and kind of insane. So I think this is standalone in DPS and damage and everything like this. Yes, she can do a lot of damage. Yes, I know. I think the character's D though. I think in terms of everything else in the game, the character has to be D. Now, moving on to Squirrel Girl. In my opinion, Squirrel Girl is another hyper-specific hero on maps like Araco or Convergence maps where enemies are stacked in tight choke points. She can do serious work, like we all know that. Against bunker comps or double shield setups, she's a solid burst damage option to quickly get rid of those shields and quickly force enemies out of position in tight corridors. I think outside of that, she struggles to do or get a ton of value. Yes, it can be super annoying to play against a Squirrel Girl, but realistically speaking, she's only really there to really break bunkers. There might be those Squirrel Girl players or Squirrel Girl one-tricks out there that think the character is amazing. Yes, it does a solid amount of damage, but in terms of how realistic the pick is a little bit on the lower end because there's just too many specific scenarios where what this character needs to be able to be played optimally. Because of that, the character sits about B or C tier. So I think that's kind of where we're going. I'm leaning more on the side of the C tier because again, feel like the character doesn't get a ton of value outside of specific scenarios. So C is fine in my opinion. Now moving on my list, we have Starlord. He got buffed, quite a while ago, season 2.5. He got a new team up in season 3.5 where he can TP. He is a strong duelist who can counter a good amount of characters. Again, like I've been saying, certain bans are required for Starlord to really shine and perform. There are always going to be those diehard Starlord players or Starlord one-tricks that think the character is insane. But when you look at the general, player base and what the characters are picking, they generally don't gravitate towards Starlord. I think Starlord, realistically speaking, sits at B tier. Because he lost the team up of Guardians Revival, I think he's a lot worse now. The res comp is dead, so he's not sitting in the best comp or best position. Yes, you can do the TP ultimate that we've all seen across YouTube and TikTok, whatever. But generally speaking, I don't think the character is A tier anymore. I think the character is sitting at B. I think res comp was really what carried the character to perform extremely well, and with that gone, it's going to be hard for the character to do much outside of that. Again, specific scenarios allowed the character to shine. That could move him up to A, that could move him up to S, but for the most part, you have counters like Hela, you have Hawkeye, you have Phoenix, you have other characters that can completely shut down the character, so I think putting him in the middle is perfectly fine now. This is a more brutal tier list that I'm making. Now moving on to Storm. I really love Storm. I think she's an awesome character. It's really cool that you have like a duelist that also is kind of like a strategist at the same time, providing support with either a speed boost, damage boost, or passively. She has a cool ultimate. She turns into a hurricane. It looks more like a tornado though, however, but that's just my opinion. I'm no meteorologist, but the Magneto is also pretty cool. But that being said, the character, in comparison to a lot of the other duelists, and because hit scan characters are so prevalent right now, I feel like she struggles to get a lot of value because she doesn't have the same movement as Human Torch, so she's going to be struggling against those hit scan duelists, where in comparison, the Human Torch can play into those hit scan heroes because he's so mobile, because he's so agile. I think I would love to put her A tier or S tier, but realistically, she looks more at B tier in my eyes, or even C tier. C tier if I'm being extremely mean, but I just love the character. It might be a little bit biased, but I'm putting her in the middle. I think, again, like I've been saying, if the bans are right, for each time I say that, I'll gift $1 to somebody. But I think we're putting her B tier, realistically. I think that's the best place I can put her. Now we have Mr. Bucky Barnes, or Bucky Burns, whatever, Winter Soldier, whatever you want to call him. Now, Winter Soldier is still a very solid character in my opinion. I think it's going to be harder for him to get a little bit of value because of the triple strategists in the game. I don't think he's S tier anymore like he previously was, a couple, patches ago, a couple seasons ago, even though a season seems like a relatively long time, but it's like a couple months ago, like 2. However, I think he's still a super reliable duelist. I think because Loki is also played so much, I think he's also going to get a ton of value still, because he can get all the resets off the clones. But I think the only characters that are going to be shutting him down are Phoenix, Hela. So if you ban those 2 characters in a perfect world, you're going to get a ton of value. But because that is so specific, I can't put him S tier. I think A tier is the relatively safer option. I think B tier doesn't do him justice because the character is still insanely strong. He didn't receive any nerfs for, quite a while, or any changes. Like, I'm not saying that he needs some, I'm just saying he hasn't received anything. He received a buff season 3, but that's really about it. So I think putting him A is fine. I think the character's still amazing. So again, A is good. Now moving on, we come to Wolverine. This character is still S tier in my opinion. The character is amazing still. At least for my team, for MRC, he is still the first ban for our team because we just don't like the character in general. I think it just puts Vanguards in a very bad spot, regardless if the character is strong or not. And because of his first pick or first elimination potential, you get thrown in, you grab an enemy, and you bring him to your team. That's the whole idea. I think having that character definitely is annoying, and just having it in the game, having Wolverine in a game like this just shouldn't be a thing. I'm sorry, Wolverine players, but that's the reality. A character that does, all that damage to Vanguards only specifically doesn't make sense. Yes, he received a little bit of a nerf with the ultimate adjustment, and he gains his ult, less, but the character still amazing. So S tier is the only option for Wolverine in my opinion. Of course, everybody has their own opinion, so let me know what you think in the comments down below about Wolverine. Now, Mr. Boombastic, Mr. Fantastic, very situational character. I think he's still, relatively good, but I think especially in triple strategist compositions, he's not going to get a ton of value. He won't be able to solo duelist with a triple strategist, and he won't really be able to get played into a triple strategist. Yes, there are some few exceptions where some players have mastered his kit, so he can get immense value, immense damage. For the most part, you're playing him to have a, one other DPS or one other strategist, because he acts as another Vanguard. But for the most part, I think he sets B tier. Like, he's okay. Let's just put it like that. Now, Human Torch. Despite some recent nerfs, in quotations, Human Torch is still amazing. He's still a super solid DPS. If you think he's strong, or if you think he's weak, then I'm not sure what game you're playing. You're definitely not playing Marvel Rivals. People are quick to call him a dead character, a weak character, but you see him both in pro play and high elo ranked. He remains very effective. His constant AoE damage, zoning, and mobility make him a reliable pick, especially against heroes like Hela, like Phoenix, like those other hit scan heroes. He is another character that my team in MRC will ban because the character is just very strong. We can let it go through, but for the most time, he's just a super solid character, especially with the Mantis, Ultron, Luna kind of team comp. Human Torch can do effective work. So for the most part, I think he's still S in my eyes. That's kind of where I'm putting. Now, Spider-Man. This character sucks. This character stinks, bro. This character is really bad. I don't think he's good at all. Even with the Human Torch team up, you just play triple strategist, which is like the meta team comp right now in season 3.5. You just play that, this character is useless. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. You can say, oh, he could pull people off the map. Oh, he can get value of this and that. You have Loki runes. You have ultimates. It's just like not worth it. It's immense risk for little to no value. That's essentially how it is in my eyes. So Spider-Man, stinky D tier. That's my eyes. Now moving on to our two, semi-new heroes. We have Blade and Phoenix, or Phoenix and Blade, whatever you want to call it. Now for Phoenix, I think the character is insane. The character is amazing, especially in season 3.5. This character is incredible. This character is S tier. She does everything and more. She's a hit scan duelist. She can 2-tap from range. She does this. She has a stun. She breaks utility. She breaks everything. She does 1 billion damage. You can damage boost her ultimate. It's just like so much. You can do a ton of combos with this character. Luna damage boost. You can do a Phoenix ult into a Mag ult. You can do this and that. The character, this opens the door for a billion things to happen. The character is amazing. So she is a very dominant, very meta-driven character, and she is S tier in my eyes. Now we come to Blade. I'm a little disappointed with Blade, in my opinion. The character is cool. The kit is cool. I think the damage reduction, or the healing reduction, sorry, is good for the game. Because support ults and healing in general is so dominant in a game like Marvel Rivals, I think having a character that does reduced healing is a good option. Whether you hate that take or not, it is good for the game. However, for the most part, his entire kit is bad, and then it's good for a second, and then it's bad again. And that's because his ultimate is probably the best thing about his kit. A lot of his abilities right now are bugged. Yes, I know that. But besides that, he's just hard to do anything with. You can only play him as like a mid-range duelist, because the second you get up close, he doesn't have enough lifesteal to really sustain, because again, the numbers are bugged. I think he does like 40% or yeah, 40% healing vampirism, or heal swap. I forget the name, I'm like dumb, but I'm having a stroke, I guess. But it's supposed to be higher or something, so he's kind of lackluster in that department. Yes, you can pull off combos. Yes, there's one-shot combos. Yes. But there's just better characters to play. I think he sits BC. I mean, I want the character to be good, but if he's too good, it's definitely going to be a problem, I feel. So I think introducing him a little bit weaker is always better. In my eyes, when you introduce new characters to the game, I think they should be introduced one of the two ways. They're either superly overpowered, then you nerf them down, or you bring them in super weak and then buff them. It's just, if you bring them in super overpowered, people are gonna play him a ton, love the character. You nerf him, people are gonna hate you. It's like if you bring him in super underpowered, people are gonna play him, find ways to play the character, make him amazing. Then you buff him, then everybody's going to play him, and everybody's going to be calling for a nerf. That's kind of just how the things work. So I think putting him in the middle is fine. He definitely needs some, a little bit of changes, a little bit of fixes, but I think the character is solid. That's kind of where I'm sitting. And that's an overview at my Duelist section for Marvel Rivals Season 3.5. What do you think about my takes? Let me know in the comments down below. Kicking off our Strategist section, we begin with none other than Adam Warlock. Now, Adam Warlock definitely got some buffs that are very nice. They reduce the energy cost of Karmic Revival, so you're going to be getting your ultimate a lot faster now. The Karmic Revival new effect is that revived allies gain bonus health equal to 70% of maximum health, which lasts for 5 seconds, decaying to 0 over 2. Now, this change is insane. I've seen a Groot get res with 1400 HP. Groot dies as a sapling, then literally gets revived as a Titan. It's insane what I've seen. That makes the character definitely a lot better now. He also has a new effect with his Cosmic Cluster, which is his right click, which each hit now reduces the Avatar lifestream charge times by 0.3 seconds. Now I think this is a great change. That means Adam Warlock is going to be able to heal a lot more now, and you're going to be seeing him get picked more and more. For me, I'm a Adam Warlock lover. I think this character is awesome. I wish he had some better movement, but that's beyond what I can say. I think having these changes, making Adam Warlock get played more, and that he isn't just locked to res compositions, just makes the character going to be able to be played a lot more. But in terms of him just being a dual strategist backline, that's where things get a little bit interesting. I still think you need to run a triple strategist for this character to get value. Although you can run a dual strategist backline setup, it's just going to be harder for the Adam Warlock to get value, right? Because you're trading off one, strategist ultimate, one big defensive ultimate for that res. Well, while the res is great, having that other strategist, defensive strategist ultimate is just better in my eyes. So I think if you just ran the Adam Warlock with a Mantis, or you ran it with a Rocket, maybe an Ultron, I think it will be played extremely well. And since we are moving into like a triple strategist kind of team composition or meta, it seems like for season 3.5, I think Adam Warlock is definitely a great pickup regardless of the circumstances in my eyes. With all that being said, I think the changes make him A tier, make him B tier. A tier is fine in my eyes. I think very, very good. Now, moving on to Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger received a nerf come season 3.5, and that was the increase of the energy cost of the Eternal Bond ultimate ability from 4,000 to 4,300. Now, you're still getting your ults as Cloak and Dagger extremely fast, but I think there's a lot better different team compositions that are better than Cloak and Dagger, like running a triple strategist with Mantis, Loki, Luna, or just running Loki, Luna, still super dominant. But I think Cloak and Dagger is another great option. I think Cloak and Dagger is still very high up on the list. I think this duo is still S tier, but I could argue for other strategists that overtake them right now. Again, Loki, Luna, but I think S is fine. Now moving on to Joff, or Jeff. The character is like okay. Yes, he was played in Ignite. Yes, I know, but you actually have to have a deep understanding of how the character works. You have to have a deep understanding of how the character interacts with the other heroes and why exactly they're picking Jeff to make it look very strong. The general player base has no idea how to do that, realistically speaking. I'm sorry. And what I mean by that is like you don't know how to play Jeff in those circumstances, or why they're picking Jeff. Yes, you could argue that, oh, he should be S tier because he was played in pro play and they won. Well, no. They played it because that's how the team comp worked. For the most part, this character is like CD tier. The character is not good, but how they played it was actually smart. And if you want to see how they played it smart, you can check out an upcoming video soon. We'll be breaking down the finals of Ignite, which was Rad versus Envy. For the most part, for the general consensus or the general populace of this game, we're looking at CD tier for Jeff, realistically speaking, so I think that's perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to put Loki and Luna in the same category, but Loki and Luna are still undisputed S tier strategists. They're almost always picked or banned in high level pro play for good reasons, and even in the middle ranks. It's not just about healing, it's the entire toolkit. Luna's Snowflake enables flyers, Psylocke BP, divers, Loki is just amazing. These characters are still S in my eyes, there's no doubt about that. And especially with the Mantis team up, I think they benefit even more now, so very solid. Now moving on to Mantis. Now I think this character, or I've always thought this character was very good. I think it's a very interesting character. The character design is very cool, where headshots were Now moving on to Mantis, I always thought this character was really cool, really unique, that good aim equates to better healing, which is pretty cool, or more damage boost. And I think the recent changes made makes Mantis going to be able to be played a ton more. I know my team for MRC are playing a ton because the team up with Loki and Groot is just insane. For the most part, this character is still pretty solid, and I would put her S tier, but on her own, she can't play S tier. When I think of characters in my tier list, on their own, how good do they interact with the other characters? I cannot play Mantis in S tier because solely the character isn't on par of like Luna, on par of Loki, on par of Cloak and Dagger, things like that. If anything, she sits A tier. But with the team up, yeah, 100% S tier in my eyes. No doubt about it. The team up is too good, too insane not to play. I think without the team up though, the character is definitely a little, on the weaker side. But I think the team up again really enables it. So without the team up, the character is S. With the team up, because you're enabling Loki and Groot, then the character is S tier because of the team up. But without the team up, like if Groot and Loki are banned in your matches, then the character is like A. But with the team ups, the character is S tier. And because you're not going to be necessarily banning if you're banning Groot and Loki, it's kind of odd. If anything, you would first ban Mantis to just completely get rid of the team up. So I think A is fine, but I really want to put her S tier. I really, truly want to put her S tier. But I think just on her own, she can't do enough. She can't do what Luna does. She can't do a ton of damage that Luna does. She can't do all of the healing that Luna does. Yes, she does have the percentage health healing, but I think this on her own, she's A tier. If I could, I would have a A+S- category, but Duck Productions does not have the funds for that, so that's what we're doing. Now, moving on to Rocket. Rocket's okay. He's very good in GOAT, and if you don't know what GOAT is, it was a thing from Overwatch, where you would play 3 Vanguards or 3 tanks and 3 strategists or 3 healers. And the whole idea was just to stall a convoy cart at the spawn for as long as you can to try to get 3 fights. That was the whole idea behind GOATs. And in this game, it's way easier because you have the Doctor Strange portal. So doing GOATs is extremely effective in convoy. I'm not saying you should, but my team is definitely abusing it because it's stupid. But he's really good in that scenario. He's very good in first fights. He's very good in convoy. And he's decent in convergence maps. I think domination, he's not as good in comparison to other main strategists like Luna, Loki, Cloak. You can even say Mantis, Adam. I think he's a little bit on the weaker side in comparison to those strategists. So in my opinion, I would be putting him B tier. Yes, he does a ton of healing. Don't get me wrong. He has the res beacon, which I love. I think it's a great item, a great ability. You have basically 1 get out of jail free card for your team every 45 seconds, which is a great thing to have. But outside of that, it's just not as good as other momentum-based abilities, other momentum-based strategist ultimates. Especially with Phoenix in the game, Rocket is a lot harder to play because the Phoenix just saves her ult for you and it gets completely shut down. Where in comparison, if Phoenix ults like a Luna, a Cloak and Dagger, a Mantis, while ulting, yes, the shield goes down for a second, but they're instantly back up. Whereas Rocket, the Phoenix ults, Rocket's ult is immediately gone and you lose what you've built up. So to be able to play Rocket effectively, Phoenix can't be in the game. And because Phoenix is such a high priority character, you're probably going to be seeing Phoenixes in the game constantly, so you're not going to get a ton of value out of Rocket, especially when the Phoenix actually knows how to play Phoenix and just waiting for your ultimate to go up, then you lose a ton of value. So for that sake, I think we had to put him at B tier. He's still a very good healer. He does a ton of healing, but in terms of utility, because Phoenix in the game, it's going to be harder to do anything. Now, moving on to Invisible Woman. I personally don't think Invisible Woman is a great strategist. I think like Cloak, Loki, Luna are all better. I think if you're playing triple strategist, you would do Cloak, Mantis, Loki, Cloak, Mantis, Adam, Luna, Loki, Mantis, Luna, Loki, Adam. You would do all those variations. You would not play Invis. Even if you have a Human Torch in your team, while the team up is nice, if you have Luna Flake on your torch and you have Mantis constantly healing your torch, constantly giving damage boosts, it's just way better than Invisible Woman. I mean, there's certain scenarios where Invis is good. You just can kill the Invis through her ultimate so easily if you have a Cloak and Dagger. All you have to do is send out that Terror Cape, which is, the 28% vulnerability or whatever, and instantly nuke the Invis. So I don't think the character is amazing. And also, you gain Invis ult relatively slow in comparison to Cloak and Dagger because of tempo. And if you tempo ult as a Cloak and Dagger, you can't really do anything else Invis. I just think there's so many scenarios where the other strategists are just way better than Invisible Woman. So for that sake, I quite frankly have to put her B tier. Yes, you could argue for A or a little bit higher. That's perfectly fine. But realistically speaking, I think that's kind of where she sits. If all the strategists are banned somehow, then yes, you would pick Invis or you pick Rocket or you pick these other strategists, which is perfectly fine. But I think for general high elo play, pro play, it's kind of where she sits. And I think if you want to pick up a strategist, I don't think you play Invis. I think you really need to focus on learning. These 3 characters: Cloak, Loki, Luna. Those are the characters I think if you're a strategist, you should be looking to play, looking to prioritize. Now, last but certainly not least, we have Ultron. Now, Ultron is another off healer that you play in a triple strategist lineup. You can't duo backline. You cannot. It's like Adam or Mantis. You cannot duo backline with Ultron, Adam, Mantis, paired with one other healer. You have to have a 3 triple strategist lineup for the character to be super effective. The character didn't receive any changes. The character's still relatively the same from Season 3, where he got a little bit of a slight nerf, I would say. Nothing too crazy. The character's still very good, still does a ton of damage. The synergy with Mantis, Ultron, Luna is extremely good. If you play that composition with a Torch, or you play that composition with a Phoenix, very good. I think the character's A tier because he's more of a duelist rather than anything. And yes, you're like, how are these off healers on top of these 2 main strategists? Well, you have to think of the current meta. This is what I'm basing all of this off of. The current meta of Season 3.5 is a triple strategist lineup. For the most part, you're not going to be wanting to run a Rocket because the Rocket will be absorbing all of the healing from the Luna, from the Cloak, from the Loki, taking all of the healing to do his ultimate because he just does a ton of healing. As an Invisible Woman, she dies way too easily inside of her ultimate, believe it or not. You can argue all you want. Oh, I jump out of the way, I do this and I do that. Yes, that's true, but that's not the point. If they find you and mark you, you're instantly dead 9 times out of 10 inside of the Invisible Woman if you're playing against a team that knows how to use their communication. So that's why both of them are kind of on the lower end. So I would try to prioritize learning these strategists rather than these 2. But of course, this video is just, open for discussion, so let me know what you think in the comments below. This has been Doug Films. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as we're almost to 20,000 subscribers. But regardless, I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.